Sure. All right, guess I got to use the mic. All right, so I want to talk to you a little bit about Illinois Technology Association. Who in the room's heard of Illinois Technology Association, ITA? Anybody? Has anybody heard of the Tech Challenge? Did you on campus? Okay, a few of you. So Illinois Technology Association is a member services organization. So we work with about 500 technology companies based here in the Chicagoland area. And we provide a lot of services for them. A lot of it is networking, collaboration, PR and marketing services, and then I run the talent programs. So what that means is I work with them on best practices regarding hiring. I'll come in, talk to them a little bit about what's working, what's not, and how can we help. And then I help be a liaison between those tech companies and the universities locally in Chicago, Midwest, that kind of thing. So I came to ITA as a campus recruiter. So I actually worked with Illinois Tech for Cars.com, Apartments.com, and Conversant. So technology companies based in Chicago that maybe you've heard of. And a big part of that was actually building a campus recruitment program. So I have a lot of experience working with students. And like I said, I actually run a program here with ITA called Tech Challenge, which I can talk about a little bit later. So networking. So I loved the icebreaker here because that really is what networking is all about. The thing about networking is that 80% of jobs are actually found through networking. So it's not applying for jobs. It's not putting your resume in a database and hoping that someone finds you. Is that a good thing? Sure. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it because I have hired many, many people from job postings. You should definitely do that. But getting out into the community, talking to people, it's who you know. I'm sure you've all heard that you're going to find your next job in who you know. So a little bit about networking. These are just best practices. Be thoughtful about when asking for an introduction. I'm a resource for you. I'm a resource for everyone in the room. I'm connected to over 4,000 people on LinkedIn. Most of them are in Chicago. I'm connected to, high-level people within different companies. I'm recruiters, lots of different people. So you'd want to utilize me as a resource, but you don't want to be asking me for an introduction, 10 a week. Because at that point, it gets pretty overwhelming for me. And you also look like you're just blanketing rather than being strategic in your thought process about introductions. So be selective. When you are meeting with people in person, encourage them to talk about themselves. There isn't a person out there that doesn't like to talk about themselves. It's what we know best. So ask them questions. Be thoughtful about their questions. Try to find common ground. So even if it's a sports team or being from Chicago, or even if you get it started with the weather, everybody likes to complain about the Chicago weather, right? Or on days like, this weekend, say, isn't it great here? And we'll forget that in 3 months, but that's okay. So one of the things I want to mention is people who have a true networking mindset realize that they have to do something in return. And I think this is really important and one of the biggest keys to networking. Don't assume that because you show up at a networking event that someone is automatically going to help you. You almost have to prove yourself a little bit, and you want to, make sure you can offer something back to them. And even if it's just, hey, putting it out there. If you could help me get an introduction to the recruiter at GoGo, that would be great. If there's ever anything I can do for you in the future, let me know. Does anyone in the room have good networking stories where maybe they went to an event, they met someone, and it turned out they got an internship, they got a job, they got a really valuable connection? Anyone willing to share? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead. Sure. Yep. Okay. Okay. Awesome. So for those of you who maybe couldn't hear, so it happened to her sister. Her sister was working through a school project at a startup, and her current boss met her new boss in the restroom and got to talking because she was wearing T-shirts that your sister, the intern, had designed, correct? And said, hey, those are great T-shirts. Who designed them? And she said, actually, our intern. And now she actually works for that new company. So you never know where you're going to meet someone. So thank you for sharing that story. So I'm going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. So here's my LinkedIn profile, headshot, smiling face there. Does everyone in the room have a LinkedIn profile? If your hand is not raised, it should be. This is absolutely crucial if you're ever looking for a job. There is not a recruiter that I know alive that doesn't look at this, mainly because social media is really important, and this is the most professional version of it. Please get a LinkedIn profile. In fact, as I work with a lot of career centers and universities, I talk to them about making it a requirement before you graduate. I think it's that important. I talk to professionals, hiring professionals every single day, and they all agree with me. So definitely get one up and running. So the nice thing about a LinkedIn profile, and we'll talk a little bit about resumes here in a minute, but resumes probably need to be one page if you have less than 10 years experience. The LinkedIn profile can be as long as you want. This is where you get a chance to really showcase your, interest and awards and special things that you can do. Cover letters are a whole other ballgame. We'll talk about them later, but this kind of almost takes place as the cover letter, especially in the summary section here. Mine got cut off, but it's a pretty robust bio. It talks about my specialties. It talks about things I volunteer with. It talks about things I'm passionate about, stuff that may not be on my resume, but my LinkedIn profile link is on my resume rather than my address. No one is going to mail you anything. You can take that off. So email, phone number, and link to your profile. And if you look, everyone has that personalized link there. So linkedin.com/tdegg, all of you have that. And you can actually personalize that to whatever you want. Most people put their name there. And that's the link, it'll hyperlink to your public profile. And that's what you put in your resume. Profile pictures. There's tons of studies done that people who have a profile picture get interacted with 90% more than anyone else. That's a huge number. It should also be a professional photo. It doesn't need to be a professional headshot. I don't expect you to go out and pay for that. I just happen to get one for free for work. But make sure it's just you. Don't put your dog. Don't put your children. Don't put a group out with at the bar, whatever. Just a nice professional headshot of you smiling. It really does help, I promise. As someone who used to search through LinkedIn profiles all day, every day, I used to skip over the ones without the pictures. So here's a little bit more about the body. Again, you want to make sure that everything's straightforward. You want to make sure it's truthful. Make sure your dates are accurate. You can put a lot more information. I probably should. There's a lot more things that I do in my job that aren't listed here. This is a great spot for that. The other tool that LinkedIn has is that you can actually upload your resume. So if you already have a resume made, it gives you a prompt that you can just upload and it pre-populates everything in there. They make it pretty easy for you. So some of the tips, I always tell people stay active with your connections. Think about Facebook and how you utilize that. You definitely keep in touch and kind of watch the people that you regularly interact with. LinkedIn should be the same way from a professional standpoint. Limit the number of status updates. Don't be making status updates 20, 30 times a day because they're going to get sick of seeing you and unfollow you. Again, think about that. The person who's posting 10 memes and videos all day and you get sick of it and you unmatch, same kind of thing. Keep your posts and shares professional. Again, this is not Facebook. Be active in one or two groups. Groups are free. They are a great way for recruiters to connect to you because a lot of recruiters do join groups that are relevant to the positions that they recruit for. Because if you join a group, it shows that you have interest in that, field or whatever. And then they can actually reach out to you for free. So if a recruiter does not pay for the LinkedIn upgrade, they can't reach out to every person on LinkedIn. They have to be connected to you in some way, at least by a third connection, except with groups. They can reach out to you for free. So definitely join groups that are relevant to what you're looking for. Does everyone know how we search through LinkedIn? How that whole process works? So as a recruiter, if I'm looking for a marketing coordinator, there's an advanced search section that I search by keyword. And I'm most likely going to type in there marketing coordinator, so in quotes, in Chicago, Illinois, and do, a 20-mile radius or whatever. The results that come back, they are sorted by keyword by default. So that means the more you have marketing coordinator on your profile, the higher you are up in my search. And I promise you, I am not going to page 100 to search. I don't get that far. So the higher up you are, the more likely you are to get a call from me or in mail or email or whatever we do. So definitely make sure your profile reflects the job you're looking for. 90% of recruiters look at online presence. They're always going to look at your LinkedIn first. That's why you just make it easy for them. Get that link right up there. A lot of them will probably do a search for your Facebook, Twitter, etc. I did. I know hiring managers do it. So if you have Facebook and it needs to be on super private, make sure it is. Make sure that profile picture is professional. I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. What kind of questions on LinkedIn? None? You all are LinkedIn masters? Come on, somebody has to have questions about this. Okay. Yeah. 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 I kind of went back and forth on this. I like having my title. Does that have to be? Absolutely not. I've seen some really interesting ones, such as, especially if you're job seeking, so dynamic professional looking for next career move in marketing. And that well, first of all, in the search results, the only thing that I can really see is this top section. That's the first thing I see from a search result. So that is a heading that's going to catch my attention. So if you're actively job seeking, think about that. That shows me that you're actively looking. Now, on the other side of this, a lot of recruiters do like passive job seekers, so someone who's already working. So that may not be the right thing. However, you are probably current students or fresh grads, so you're in a bit of a different ballgame. Where I think probably the right thing to do is put something like that. Looking for your next career move, and say what you're looking for in marketing, in computer science, innovative developer looking to make a change in the next cool startup, whatever. Have a little creativity with it, and I think that's okay. Let your personality come through with that. Yeah, question. We'll come back to you. So yeah, he asked if it's okay to have a lot of contacts. I think that's totally fine. I think that your LinkedIn profile should be your Rolodex. I think that's where your next job could absolutely be. Networking is just another version of networking. And granted, I did a lot of interviews. I have interviewed thousands and thousands of people in 10 years. So of course, I have a lot of connections. We don't expect you guys to have them. But I think the more you do build up that Rolodex, the better off you'll be. Connect with professors, advisors, other students. Because again, the more connections you have, the more you might be connected to a recruiter who might be looking for you. Let's get to your question, sorry. Yeah, she asked if there's anything I wouldn't put on LinkedIn, such as coursework, skills. I'll say no for the most part. I think that LinkedIn is the place where you can put actually extra because it's an online resume and it's unlimited real estate per se. I would stay away from the personal things. Don't mention you're married. Don't mention or single, or don't mention children. Don't mention your age. Anything like that it really is just not necessary for any job search. I think that keep it professional, but from a skill standpoint, no. I think that you should definitely put as much out there as possible. I think there's actually even a section for maybe interest. So this is a good spot where a marathon runner or you play the piano or guitar. I tend to encourage people to keep that off of your resume, but this might be a good place to put that. There's a commonality and common ground about putting those skills out there, so it's not a bad thing to have. Yep. So he was asking about should you have a variety and a differentiated background of the people that you're linking in with? And I think yes. I don't think that's a bad thing. I cannot stress enough how much your network is important to you. You never know who's going to help you find your next job. What's your major? Okay. Does that mean you should only connect with mechanical engineers and recruiters? Absolutely not. Because what if a friend of yours works in marketing at a company that you're really interested in? That's a commonality within that company. So I think it's actually better if you have a pretty diverse connection pool, for sure. Yep. So she asked if send invitations even if you don't know that person. The jury is out on that. Some people are really sensitive to it, and they won't accept people that they haven't met. When I was in recruitment and doing recruitment constantly, I pretty much accepted everyone. The only thing is I'd always try to look at their profile and make sure it's not spam, because there is definitely LinkedIn spam. It happens. But if it looks like someone who was in a professional type of role or could be a job seeker, I accepted them. My tip to you is write a personalized message in your LinkedIn invite to them. You should do that even with a friend. Hey, had a class with you, just wanted to add you to my LinkedIn network. Every single message should be personalized. It takes a little extra time, but it helps. Even your professors meet hundreds of students over the years, and you probably want to connect with that professor because they could be a reference down the road, or you could come back to them for advice, whatever. But they meet a ton of people, so you may want to say, hey, I was a student in your Management 3000 level course. So yes, I think if you do send it to someone you don't know, personalize it and let them know why. You work for a company that I'm very interested in. I would like to add you to my LinkedIn profile. There aren't very many people who wouldn't accept that. Yep. He asked about the summary section, how it should be organized, and I don't care. I don't know if there's a right answer. Mine's in paragraph form, but I actually just changed it. It used to be more in bullet section. I think that it's whatever makes you comfortable, as long as it's grammatically correct, easy to read. That one I think is more personal preference. I personally think in a resume and in the body. So this part should always be bullets. It's a lot easier for a recruiter to read, but the summary can almost act like your cover letter. So it tends to be in paragraph form. That doesn't mean it has to be. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so you can put it right in the summary. I mean, that's a good place to put that. And maybe at the bottom, work authorization and what that happens to be. Or I actually have talked to students all the time who are like, I have a name that makes people think I'm not a green card holder or a U.S. citizen. So they put it right out there that they're a U.S. citizen. I loved that as a recruiter because it makes my job much easier. If that particular role that I was hiring for, we didn't sponsor for, because we did sponsor for some, not all. And then I just know, and it's just one less thing they have to search through. So I think that's a good spot. Again, I like to be super candid. It may eliminate you from roles if you do put it on there. Because again, I sponsored for certain opportunities, not all of them. So if I saw that you were an international student in that role, we weren't accepting international at that time, I probably wouldn't have called you. But hopefully you'll get matched up, and that's a whole other conversation, international recruiting, but the summary is the best place for that. Any other questions on LinkedIn? Yeah, go ahead. Yep. So he said that if someone does a search for a communications director, that the results that come back at the top tend to be the people who are most active. I don't know if that's true. I'm not saying it's not. That's a fact I'm not sure about. I can check for you. I had always been trained by LinkedIn that it's by the keyword relevancy. So if I did a search for communications director in quotation, so those two words directly, the more they had communications director on their resume, the higher they came up in the search results. With that being said, I do know that LinkedIn, because of that, the more robust your profile is, the higher you come up. Because by default of having more words on there, you're going to have more keyword relevancy. So to me, as a recruiter, perception's reality. The more robust profile you have, the more active you look. Does that make sense? Yeah. What about what? So he asked how much you should post. I think every day. If you are an active job seeker, you should, and you don't have to post status updates every day, but maybe share an interesting article or interact with your connections by liking something. If you're joining groups, maybe share articles that other people in the group are sharing. It just shows that you're taking an interest in the professional world, and again, makes you a little more active. You'll also hear about things that you may not have known about. So companies that are doing some cool things in the industry. Oh, I didn't know that Uptake was based in Chicago. They might have some cool jobs that I'd be interested in. And you probably would find that out from your newsfeed in LinkedIn. And also, LinkedIn is smart, and it learns your activity. So the more you interact on LinkedIn, the more it's going to send you relevant things that you might be interested in. So I think it's always good to be more interactive on LinkedIn. If you're actively job searching, even on your phone, spend 30 minutes on it, looking through the news feed and see what goes on. Share some articles, like a few things. If someone has, you probably all see the function on LinkedIn that says, congratulate so-and-so on their new job. I mean, give them a little love and a little recognition, and they'll give it back. All right, we're going to move on to resumes here. This is a lot of writing, so I'll kind of flip through it, but if you guys want to jump in and ask resume questions, I'll help. But a couple top things, be consistent with all of your information. So if you do bullet points, make sure the bullets are all the same under all of the roles. Most recent first, so from the top should be your most current job or internship, down to the oldest. If you are a current student or fresh college grad, your education should always be at the top. However, once you get your first job and you've been in that role for about a year or more, you can put the education at the bottom because your experience is always going to be more relevant to a recruiter. Does not make your education any less important. It's just now that you have some work experience, that's what we're going to be looking at. Make sure it's neat, readable. Make sure there's not tons of white space, but make sure it's not filled to the brim with black and white words. Again, this is a ton of information. Objective statements, I'm indifferent to them. If you have room for them, go ahead and put it on there, but they should be specific. I'm not a huge fan of objective statements that say, looking for a role that utilizes my skills. Well, that told me nothing. It should be a little bit more dynamic. Looking for a software engineer role within an innovative startup where I can, utilize my skills in Java, whatever. Can you tell I'm bad at writing these? But so be specific with them. Again, not necessary. Make sure that extra material is not included. So marital status, all of that, we don't need to know. You don't need to have your high school information on there. If you went to college, that is understood, and you should never have that on there. Action verbs. So I think every resume should start with verbs. So created, developed, managed, those types of words that are action verbs that shows that you were doing something. Also, you should never use I. So in your resume, it shouldn't say, I manage this project. We understand that it's you. Your resume is yours, so that's not necessary. Avoid too much jargon. From technical resumes, that's tough to get away from, and most recruiters understand that. Most recruiters are technical recruiters, so they can read through that. But you also have to dumb it down for some of us every once in a while, so make sure it's readable. In fact, a lot of the things I suggest is have someone who's not a technical person read through it and make sure that they can understand it. Let's see. Test market your resume. That's what your career services is for. Definitely utilize them. Utilize your professors. Utilize myself. I'm happy to look at resumes. Utilize your friend. Make sure there's no grammatical errors. That will take you out of the running faster than most things. You'd be surprised. Make sure that you're using the right tense. So are you currently an intern with Uptake? It should be present tense verbs. Were you past an intern at cars.com? It should be ED, past tense. So make sure that those things are updated. You also have to update your resume all the time with those types of things. Okay, what kind of questions on resumes? Anything? Yeah. Yep. So she asked about the address. If she's applying, so lives in Chicago, but applying to a job in Phoenix, for example, should she include the address on there? Who here has applied for a job online? Any of you, you've applied for a job online, right? No one? Come on. You have to fill out a huge form every time, right? They're going to ask for your address there. So I don't think it's totally necessary. I should probably preface this. These are just suggestions. You absolutely do what you're more comfortable with. I have seen a lot of students, say, they reside in Chicago, but maybe they're from Boston. So they'll put their Boston address and say, as of May 2016. If that's something you're more comfortable with, that's great. The other thing is, again, if you're a fresh college grad or a current student, where your university is located, they assume that that's where you're going to be. Also, I also suggest having the city where you worked listed. And again, recruiters are smart people. They'll figure it out that you probably resided in Chicago. You could also utilize that objective statement as looking to relocate to Boston. Or in your LinkedIn summary. It's a great spot to put that as well. Yep. So she asked if she's a master's student, should she leave off the bachelor's? I would leave the bachelor's. The reason being is because there's a lot of people who have a bachelor's in psychology and then maybe go back for something more specific, like industrial organization. So it shows that you have a varied background. So I think it's always a good idea to leave the bachelor's. The high school is the thing you can leave off. But you should be proud of that bachelor's degree, so you should definitely leave it on there. Jade.
Should people include any academic projects that they worked on?
Great question. So she asked, should they include academic projects? Yes. In fact, I do talk to a lot of students who maybe haven't done an internship yet. This is a great way to fill into some of that space. You can make that project actually look like a job. So from January 2016 to present, worked with company X on project X, and here are the things that I did. Absolutely, you can build your resume around that project because that's really important. Projects show agility and management skills. They also show teamwork. So I think that you should absolutely include those. Yep. Yep. So she asked, what are some things to include if you don't have a lot of relevant work experience? I think projects is number one. A lot of times, so I just redid a resume for a friend's daughter, and she was kind of in that situation. She had worked retail through college, but she wanted to show, I'm looking for marketing, and what are some things that I can show that I have some relevant experience to marketing? So as a student or fresh college grad, a lot of times I'll suggest putting coursework in there. She took a lot of marketing coursework, intro to marketing, international business marketing, etc. You can actually put that as a section right underneath your education. So if Illinois Tech, expected graduation May 2016, and then a section right below relevant coursework, and you can list that out. And then you can start talking about different projects you've worked on. Bullet points? Yeah, so she asked how many bullet points should be under each position, and I think that's up to you. If it's a really robust internship or job and you did a lot of things, you should put that in there. Make sure it's relevant. I do a lot of administrative work in my role that doesn't matter, so it's not listed there. However, if you're trying to build, put more space on there and fill the space, you may have to get a little creative with that. I don't think that there's a set amount. If you want a good rule of thumb, I would say probably 3 to 6. Yep. So what was the first part? You're doing research? Okay. A lot of technical. So he asked basically about the technical jargon. So if he's doing research that's pretty technical, how do you get around that? My suggestion would be write it in the language you're comfortable with. And then have a friend who doesn't know what you're talking about read it. And have yourself describe what you did to that friend and then write that down, because you're talking to them in layman's terms, and you'll get some ideas on how to make it simpler for them to read. Does that work? Yeah. Yeah. So he asked if recruiters will look at students that don't have job experience. Absolutely. I mean, we don't expect every single person had jobs all through school. You know, I think it's preferable. As a recruiter, I always really appreciated and admired people who did work through school, even if it's at Starbucks. I think it shows, you know, initiative in time management and a lot of different things. However, I understand that not everyone does that. So I think that's where the projects come in and really try to build your resume out around the different experiences. The other thing is, so the girl that I mentioned that did retail, she did a lot of volunteer work with Pause. And it was something she was very, very passionate about. And we actually built in her volunteer work as a job, because she was actually scheduling other volunteers. She was assigning them tasks. She was responsible for the animals that came through the door. That's a lot of responsibility. That's like a job, but she wasn't getting paid for it. So there's a lot of different things that you can build into a resume and be a little creative. Yep. All right, I'm going to touch on this slide here. So don't post any content in social media that might be controversial. Stay away from talking about Trump, at least while you're job searching. Even if it's on lockdown, your privacy, you know, I always say it's a good idea to stay away from it. Don't ever post it on LinkedIn. Don't use all caps. I don't know why still people do this in your profiles, on your resume, in emails especially. Send follow-up emails after 3 business days. I need to reword this. I think you should always send a follow-up email after a networking or an interview the same day, or at least the very next day. Mainly because as technology companies, most companies, they actually move faster than that. And it shows that you took the initiative. So sooner the better. Personalized LinkedIn connections, have a professional email. I see this a lot where they say hot1123@yahoo.com. No, have a professional email that you use for your job search, trisha.degg@gmail.com, and use that just for your job search if you need to. Never provide inaccurate and dishonest info. So I did corporate recruiting, as I mentioned, and we actually did pre-employment background checks. What that means is that before we would ever give you a formal job offer, we confirmed all of the information in your application was correct. When you filled out that application, you signed it saying it was correct, legally binding. Then we had another company that would confirm that information. They would confirm that you got your degree with the school, and they would call your ex-employer and say, did this person work here for this long? There's not many companies that don't do that. Please, please, please make sure it's accurate. Dates, titles, all of it. If you struggle with dates, there's some leniency, because I don't remember how long I worked at, Career Builder for however many months, but please make sure that it's accurate. We have turned down people because we found dishonest info. Treat everyone with respect, even the receptionist. So I have a little story. In my role, I meet a lot of people, and I meet companies of all sizes. And I was going to meet a company out in the suburbs, and there's a lot of office parks out there. I don't know if you've ever been there. And not all of them have these really nice, robust reception areas. Sometimes you open the door, and you open the door to the cube farm. And we kind of stood there and said, we're looking for so-and-so. And the person sitting at the first cube said, oh, let me go get them. Can I get you water? Definitely acted like a receptionist. Said, have a seat. So-and-so will be right out. Get into the meeting, and we got to talking to them, and they said, oh, did you meet our CEO, John? And we're like, oh, no, where was John? He sits in the first cube. He likes to see who comes through the door. You never know who you're going to meet. So be respectful to everyone. So this is a little bit about ITA. Again, 500-member companies. You can learn more about ITA at illinoistech.org. Follow us on Twitter, ITA Buzz. So Tech Challenge. Anybody in here coders, programmers? So we do a coding challenge where you can actually, it happens in the fall. It'll start in September. I don't have the date here yet, but we're working on it. And you actually win up to $5,000 and get recruited. There's a little bit of information on your table about it. And then we have a free student membership. Every person in the room should sign up for it. Again, there's cards on your table with information on how to do that. But utilize me. If you want me to look at your resumes, send it to me. I'm happy to look at it. We also throw a lot of networking events. So we actually have one with Trading Technologies here in Chicago on June 14th, where they're going to host students to meet with some other companies that are still looking for full-time roles and internships. Any other questions? Yeah. 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 So she asked, want to make sure you have accurate job titles. What if they're not very descriptive? And you're going to have that. So have you guys heard of Red Frog Events? It's a small events company here in Chicago. They're pretty cool. Check them out. They actually let you make up your own job title when you walk in the door. So people can be like, the Czar of Awesomeness. That's a job title there. So I get that. If in that case, they're probably going to say, yes, this person worked here at some sort of similar job title. Be as accurate as possible. If you're the Czar of Awesomeness, but you're really a marketing coordinator, put marketing coordinator. Yep. She asked if you're international and you have work experience from your country, how relevant is that to the job search? Absolutely. That's part of your work history. That's part of your skill set. If you were a manager of people at previous role in another country, you still know how to manage people in the U.S. It's not that different. So yeah, you should absolutely be including that. It also helps with keyword search. So again, on your LinkedIn profile and your resume, if you were a manager of people doing communications, that's, again, relevant experience. A lot of things translate no matter what country you're in. So should you have a project that's relevant to your country? What do you mean by that? Yeah, so she's asking about if there's a project relevant, even if it's in your home country. Yes, it's still relevant experience. At that point, if you're getting your resume a little long and you need to cut it out, some things you have to cut out. But if it's something that's really relevant to a role that you're applying for, you should be including it. Yeah. Yeah. It depends. So she asked how important keywords are in resumes. If you're putting your resume into some kind of database, like a Career Builder or a Dice or Monster or whatever, they're really important. That's how we search through those million-plus resumes. The other thing to think about is that a lot of those huge applications that you apply to and have to fill out are actually databases for that company. So it's called their applicant tracking system, their CRM tool. You're putting your information into that database. If they're a good recruiter, they're searching through that database on a regular basis. Again, search by keyword. So the other thing is, I think all of you creating a LinkedIn profile should just upload your resume. Create the resume, because that's the most important thing that you're going to be using in your job search, and then just input it right into LinkedIn, and then they go hand in hand. How are we doing on time? Okay, so I think I'm getting cut off. However, Tracy has my contact information. I have cards in the back. The cards here on your desk or on your tables have the information on student membership. My contact information is on all over the website. Happy to help anybody. Okay?